the underlying fallacy that I've always lived with in my life is from the time I was, very young, and I think it's true for everybody, is we have this really, really well-developed idea of what has to happen for us to be okay. We define our win, and everything else is less than win.
Welcome to the Tip the Scales podcast, where we discuss running and growing your law firm. I'm your host, Maria Monroy, president and co-founder of LawRank. Today, I am joined by Joe Fried. It is his third time on the podcast, and if you haven't listened to the previous episodes with him, I strongly recommend it because we kind of just pick up where we left off. We talked about having a mindset coach, being worthy, being aware of your own energy and how that can impact others. We talked about deserving happiness, the importance of having a supportive partner, specifically as a trial lawyer. I hope that you guys enjoy this episode. I want to talk about what we always talk about.
I already know you're going to make me open some secret door in my heart.
Let's do it.
And, whatever it goes.
So I've been working with your coach.
Yes.
Are you still working with him?
No, but I've thought about trying to enlist him to. I feel like there's more that I need to do, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do that with Mark, or I've actually. I mean, this is an active thing that I'm going through right now, considering. So tell me, how has life changed since the last time we spoke? It's changed a lot. I mean, in terms of, jumping off from the coaching side of things, last time we talked, I was kind of more in the beginning, maybe third or so of the coaching side of things. And I think I shared with you things like sticky notes, and we talked about stuff like that. And then, where coaching ended up going for me, that, a lot of things. But one of the real big things is, I think we even talked about last time we had gotten to the point where Mark, the coach, had just confronted me one day and said, "Does everything always work out okay?"
Yeah, we
talked about that.
Yeah.
Well, and so just to bring people who may not have seen that piece, I mean, the idea was he confronted me. I said no. Things sometimes work out good, sometimes don't work out good, and that led to him giving me an assignment of going.
He tried to give it to me, and I was like, "No, I know everything always works out."
You know how this goes.
Yeah, I was like, "No, I'm not doing that."
Right. Yeah. Well, for me, I didn't have the advance warning that you got from me, right? So I came back the next week, and I had 2.5 pages of stuff. Things. I mean, going way back in my life to being dumped in high school, all the way up to people dying and committing suicide, and all these kinds of things. And that led to a coaching session where he took me through and made me understand that while each of these things were for a period of time painful and or awkward, that something beautiful came out of it. Right. Even the things that involved death and suicide and things that are objectively, feel terrible, it doesn't take away the pain or the awkwardness of them, but what happens is that it opens up the ability for something else beautiful to happen. Like even, thinking about one example of where there was a child death. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into all the details of it. Not my child, though. That's my biggest fear in the world.
Same.
So that piece was going on last time. But what that's led to is there's another step. And you see, what I'm realizing is I'm just now giving you the precursor, so you don't fall into this coach's, spell, right? But no, I'm just kidding. Only partially.
I give him such a hard time.
I
think he's frustrated with me half the time.
Well, that's right. It's good for him, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Right. I think he should pay you for that.
Thank you.
Yes. But so what it led to is the next level of this is to really, truly lose outcome orientation. Because if everything always works out okay, then what purpose does anxiety or even worrying about anything for the future serve, right? And so an example of the real world is the last trial I tried, which was a couple of months ago. It was the first time ever in my life where I never wanted to win a case more than I wanted to win that case. But for the very first time, I was open to the possibility equally that something even better could happen if I lost the case. And so I know that sounds crazy to think about. Trial lawyer saying like, something better could happen if you lose the case. I want to make sure people understand. I never wanted to win more than I wanted to win. But it was not about, but the underlying fallacy that I've always lived with in my life is from the time I was, very young, and I think it's true for everybody, is we have this really, really well-developed idea of what has to happen for us to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We define our win, and everything else is less than win.
But when you get there, you're still not okay.
What do you mean?
Like when you have an outcome and then like you reach that outcome, then there's a new outcome. Like there's a new goal, there's a new thing. It never ends.
Absolutely, goal-wise, yes. But what if? But for me, for instance, in that trial setting, the idea was, okay, so I want to win, great. But what happens if I don't win? Well, first of all, what stories am I telling myself all around that? That I'm less of a lawyer than what are people going to think about me? You're only as good as the last time out. All those kind of things, which all are ego-driven things. I mean, the truth is that if I go lose a case, if I go win a case, I'm not really any better of a lawyer than I was the day before, right? And I'm no worse of a lawyer than I am the day before if I lose the case. The healthiest response is that all of that is feedback that comes into me that allows me to analyze and make choices in my life about how I want to be next time or more, or less or whatever in the future. But it's whenever from the time you're a little kid and you're making decisions about what is the victory, the truth is every time we do that, we are making that choice. We're making that with woefully incomplete information, right? So you think, I got to win this trial for things to be okay. Well, or I've got so-and-so has to survive, or I have to get this next client, or I have to get this next, book of business, or how many times have you not gotten something that you thought you needed to have happen? And then, a few months later, you're going, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that didn't work out that way, right? So whenever we're making that pronouncement in our life that this is what has to happen, people listening to this right now, if they think, what is it that I'm attached to right now that needs to happen, that I'm telling myself the story needs to happen for me to reach the next level, for me to be okay, for me to have a good relationship with my spouse or my kid or my law partner or whatever, recognize, A, you're telling yourself a story about it, okay? And secondly, are you open to the idea that if it doesn't work out that way, something better could work out? And you don't have all the information. You don't know what the best thing is. So why the hell are you worrying about it? If everything always works out okay, and then why are you picking in advance what okay has to look like?
So is it just like it removes the anxiety?
It's so, I can't even really describe easily with words what this last trial was like for me.
Did you win?
I won.
Oh, of course you did.
It was a really hard case.
I'm sure.
Nobody thought we'd win it. And so we won it, but the feeling during it, when the anxieties were all around me, I could feel them coming off from other people. I know it sounds like BS, but I really had no anxiety.
I believe you.
I was like, okay, if I win, that's going to be awesome. And if I lose, I can't wait to see how that's going to work out great. Instead of, OMG, what the hell am I going to do? And so that's the new me. The new me is to sit there and say, I wonder how, I wonder how this is going to look. I wonder what's going to be great about this outcome that I can't see right now. But if I truly trust that things work out great, then I just don't have the vision to see it yet. But if I live long enough, I'm going to get to see how this is beautiful and this is awesome and this is better than it would have been if I'd have gotten what I thought I wanted to happen.
Hmm.
Make sense?
It does make sense.
You're sitting there going, I'm not there.
I'm definitely not there, A. B, the only thing that I can't help but wonder is, but were you really feeling that way, or were you faking it to yourself? Like, oh, I'm okay no matter what. And it's like almost like like you're lying to yourself.
Well, no, first of all, I appreciate us having the kind of relationship where you would say that to me, because I want that. I want people holding that up. And the true, and it's true to say, well, the real test would have been if you lost, not if you win, right?
Yeah.
If you're sitting there saying, yeah, blah, 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 but if you'd have lost, you'd have felt like crap, right? I would have felt like crap because
and isn't that
because
allowed?
there's pain and there's awkwardness, right?
Yeah.
So I'm never saying the pain and the awkwardness aren't going to be there. If you lose somebody who is lovely to you, if you lose a relationship, if somebody loses their life, somebody loses something that in the moment, it's going to be painful and it's going to be awkward, one of those two things. Doesn't change that. But what if we brought to that also, in the midst of that pain and in the midst of that awkwardness, what if we opened up, always having open and available to us, this idea that I can't wait to see how this is going to turn out beautiful. I can't wait.
This is where I'm struggling.
Yep.
So I agree that everything always works out in the end. Like, even if you really want something and it doesn't happen, it's for a reason. The universe is always working for us.
Conspiring in your favor.
I agree with all of that. However, what I can't reconcile is, personally, I'm not as advanced as you.
Yeah, right.
When you want something and like there's all that anxiety about wanting it. And even if you're like, even if it doesn't happen and it doesn't work out, I know everything's going to be okay. But yet I'm still feeling this anxiety to still get what I want.
Well, the first thing that I would say is to analyze what is really going on with that desire.
Like, what's the story?
What's going on with the desire to get that intense need for that to happen? What are you telling yourself around that? And usually it's going to be something about a validation self-worth. Idea, self-worth, kind of a thing. And so that's a whole nother, we're not talking about that right now, but that's always at play in all of this stuff, always beneath everybody's motivation. Number one motivator is validation. And unfortunately, look, that's one of the things I worked on a lot in the coaching is moving away from the need for external validation to truly feeling, not bullshitting my way through it, but truly feeling I am really okay. I'm really okay. I don't have to earn okay. I don't have to go produce to be okay. I'm okay right now. I've got everything that I need right now. There's not something out there that I've got to achieve, that I've got to obtain, that I've got to conquer in order for me to be okay.
And to do that, did you have to tap into gratefulness?
Of course, every day.
Okay.
Multiple times a day, in the midst of whatever the shit is that's happening.
So it's an active...
It's absolutely active.
It's not just like you woke up and you're like, oh, all of a sudden I have no anxiety if I win or lose. It was like an active, like, you worked through it.
Yes, and it happens just yesterday. I had an anxiety attack. It wasn't huge, but I literally, it was strong enough to literally, I couldn't stay laying down. I had to sit up.
What does that feel like? I've never had an attack. I just have like a low grade anxiety all the time.
Well, this was this was something that was just a very uncomfortable feeling, like I couldn't sit still. I couldn't be still with whatever was going on.
Oh, okay, no, then I always have a low grade anxiety attack. Yeah.
So, but it was strong enough to literally made me like almost felt like I was being held down. I needed to get up.
And
I needed to move around. So it has to do with some things that are going on with one of my kids right now. And since it's their story, I'd prefer
That's
not
tough.
to. I'm always open about my story, but this one's their story.
I get it.
What I had to do in that moment is first, I'm grateful for the feeling now. Okay, so I'm grateful. Okay, thank you, universe, for bringing this to my awareness. What's going on? Because I don't like this feeling. So what's going on? So what do I need to do to address that? What stories am I telling myself? And in that situation, like every parent does, we think that we should be able to control whatever's going on with our kids.
Totally.
And whatever's going on in their lives and their circumstances and whatever it is. And we feel like we should be able to go fix it.
Yeah.
Because, right?
It's so funny you say that, because I've literally been thinking like I got to deal with my anxiety now before my kids are teens and they're out in the world. And then they're like young adults and I have zero control over what they do. It's going to like completely drive me insane.
It will, probably.
But what if I can beat it? What if I can get ahead of it?
Well, what does getting ahead of it look like?
What you said, just being like,
if you really, really allow yourself to get deep into this idea of outcome orientation, right? What is the outcome that I'm requiring to have happen? That's what we're anxious about. We're anxious because we've defined this kind of an outcome for ourselves. And then the underlying reality is we don't really have any control over whether it gets there or not. Right. So we can fake it. We can say we think we may not control the actual outcome, but we can control all these other variables. And the truth is, at some level, the control becomes an illusion, right? And
it's a total illusion.
Right.
I'm so aware of it every time I jump on a freaking plane. Now, last time we spoke, I think the last 2 times we spoke, you were trying to do less and not feel like you had to be go, go, go. Am I remembering that correctly?
It's true. Yeah.
How has that been going?
Not so good. I mean, but here's what's different. What's different is there's a lot more intentionality, because what I've realized is I like being busy.
That's how I feel.
Okay? So I was telling myself a story that I need this elusive thing called balance, and what I'm now very okay with is no, that's not really how my life really is, and that's okay. I mean, whoever said you got to have balance to have a happy life, that's not true, because now I can tell you that I make a choice every day to be happy.
Okay, but here's my concern, not with obviously like you, but my personal concern with this is like, do I like being busy because I'm running away from something?
I think what you're hitting on, that's such a great thought, because for years in my life, busy was my drug of choice. It was I'm an addict, and that was my drug of choice, right? So and what I mean by that, for people who've never been in the recovery world, is that was what prevented me from actually confronting and addressing the real challenges in my life. If I'm real busy, then I don't have to go deal with relationship issues. If I'm real busy, then I don't have to focus on challenges with the kids. If I'm real busy, then I don't have to go do the hard work, right? Because it's acceptable for us to be busy, right? So it's like an acceptable drug of choice.
Well, it's almost like people praise it. Like people tell me all the time, like, Maria, you're like the hardest working person I know. I'm like, well, A, I'm not, but B, like, I don't understand why that's like become it's like such an American culture thing. Like,
well, I mean, you can always ask yourself, what are the stories you're telling yourself around it?
I just really like it though.
Yeah,
it's addicting.
So what Mark, our coach, would say is, I don't care what you're doing, I care why you're doing it, right? So he said that to me a million times. I go do 100 presentations a year, and when I first went to him, I was like, I want to understand what drives me at this point. I don't need anything from law anymore. Why do I feel compelled to go do 100 presentations in a year? And at the beginning of it, what he said to me is, he goes, I don't care what you're doing. I care why you're doing it. If you go doing it is serving your life's purpose. And and it's okay even for it to give you endorphin hits. I mean, but if you feel like you're meeting your purpose there, awesome. But if any part of it, even the littlest part of it, is that you need somebody there to come up to you and say, wow, that was great. Wow, that was the best thing I've ever seen. Yeah, you just changed my life. Then that's an ego sickness. And that's something that actually prevents you from being the best you. So now when I approach and when I come, I just got done doing a talk just before coming up here, And so people came up to me afterwards and said, oh, that was great. And so what's different now is I don't need that. What I've been trained to do is say, this is just feedback. Okay, so if someone came up and said, that, I wish I had the last hour of my life back. That frickin' sucked. Okay, that was horrible. I wish I had that. I would not feel lessened by that now. I would feel like, well, that's great feedback. I should take that into consideration maybe as I build the next program that I'm going to speak at. If someone comes up and says, that was the most incredible thing I've ever heard, then I will say that, first of all, I can acknowledge that it feels good. My ego likes to hear that, right? But that doesn't make me better, and it doesn't make me more okay or less okay or more worthy or less worthy. So that's dramatic. That's a dramatic difference.
But how did you get here?
I got here by reminding myself every time for months and months, and even now, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, constantly going back to now conscious awareness. Okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? So even like, why am I accepting this invitation to go speak? What's going on? What's really going on? Am I needing some, hit or, so because, I think you have this too. We have the disease of pleasing others, right?
Yeah, no, I don't have that.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't.
No.
You really think so?
Well,
I really don't think so.
on my podcast, when she comes to my podcast, we're going to talk about that.
Well, no, we can talk about it now. I just don't know that
you don't have it as bad as I have it because I'm at the top of the list.
But I don't know that I have that, honestly.
Well,
I don't think that's my issue.
It's great if you don't have it because
maybe I'm just not aware of it. I'm going to give this some thought. I will give it some thought.
Well, for me, it's been a huge issue. I'll say yes because I think that if I say no, you'll think less of me.
Is that why you're here?
Yeah, I had to do it. I'm just teasing. No, I love talking to you, even though you make me talk about things that I don't talk. I mean, I do talk about stuff like this. We haven't opened any total Pandora's boxes today, but I mean, this stuff is so profound.
Yeah.
In terms of living your life. I mean, imagine because anxiety is so huge in so many people's lives, including mine historically, right? So what's really going on? I mean, is there a path to addressing that that's not medication? Is there a path that allows you to change? Since we're all conditioned creatures, it's conceivable that the anxiety cycle is part of our conditioning. And so if it is there a way to change that conditioning so that the cycle changes?
That's
and I'm living proof that there is, because I think that once you become less attached to the need for an outcome, then what's the purpose of anxiety? What does anxiety do? And so when anxiety pops up in my life right now, my first training is to say, what am I attached to in terms of an outcome? Oh, I'm attached to, like the most recent one, I'm attached to the outcome that my kids have to be, everything's got to be great for my kids, right? And what part of that is really your responsibility, Joe? What's your real job as a parent now? Is it to fix everything, or is it to be beside your now adult child in a way that's appropriate for that kind of relationship? They're not 5 anymore, right? So, what are the stories I'm telling myself? What's the attachment? And if I take the attachment away, and it happened yesterday, when I realized what the attachment was, and I challenged the story behind that attachment, the anxiety went away because I realized that that I don't have the control over whatever story I was telling myself. And then it allowed me to be a better dad, because now I get to come not from a place of anxiety and this need to try to fix an outcome, but my need now is just to be a great dad, just to show you that I love you no matter what. No matter what the outcome is, I love you. I love you the same exact amount if you go and have this outcome or you go have this outcome.
I love that.
And so it's just allowed me to be a better human. And I think that doing this has made me a better human.
But do you think this is easier also because you are financially stable? Because I could already foresee people thinking, well, yeah, but you don't have to worry about money. Like, what if the anxiety is tied to money? Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you think it's easier once you have that kind of, taken care of and you can work on yourself more?
Maybe, but what I would say to somebody who's not financially in that place is, what story are you telling yourself about that? Because how many people do you know who have all the financial freedom in the world and they're freaking miserable?
They go hand in hand, in my opinion, to some extent.
Because we humans attach so much to
Money.
I need to be financially independent to feel successful, to feel safe, to feel okay. All of that is BS. You can choose to feel successful right now. You can choose to feel you're defining this, and so the challenge would be to recognize, how are you defining? What do you even define as, I mean, for most people, if you think about even what does it mean to be financially independent? As soon as you get to that point that you've defined it the first time, you go, no, that's not really it. I need to add a 2x to that.
Yeah.
Then you get to 2x of it and say, you know what? I better get a margin of 4x.
Yep.
Okay. So it's always this elusive thing, which automatically tells you you're telling yourself a BS story because it's never going to be enough.
Well, the other thing is, I think what's really dangerous is that people think if I get to this place, then it's all going to be okay. And there's so many people that I know that got to that place and they said it actually threw them into a depression because they realized that it didn't do what they thought it was going to do.
And so what's the story they're telling themselves? They're telling themselves the story that they needed that to happen to be okay.
Yeah.
They needed that to happen to feel self-validated. They needed that. The truth is that there's nothing. I mean, this is what our coach would say is, there's nothing out there that will give you that feeling. Nothing. Go win a $1 billion lottery, and that's not going to make you, if you don't feel safe and secure and okay in who you are and worthy of life and love and everything that's associated with that validation. If you don't feel worthy of that,
yeah,
right now there is nothing out there that will fill that hole for you. So the work is backwards. The work is to come inside and say, let's deal with that worthiness. Let's get to a point. And so for me, I had to tell myself every day, I had to start challenging my own subconscious, the messages that I'd given my own subconscious about what is success. What does it mean to be worthy? And when you think about it, you've got these amazing kids, right? Is there anything that your child needs to do to be worthy of the love that you give them?
No, and I tell them all the time,
right.
Especially after, my middle child is very difficult. And once he calms down, I'm like, I love you no matter what. I know you were upset. Doesn't change how I feel about you.
Right. And that's not bullshit.
No,
right.
Absolutely not. No.
So yet, what part of you feel, and I'm not picking on you, but is there a part of you that feels that you need to do something to be worthy of love?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So why is it different for you than why is your kid, even the challenging one, worthy just because of who they are, just because they're here, just because they are this amazing creature with all of their quote positives and quote negative traits, all of those things. And I'm kind of emotional thinking about it, but because I'm trying to do this in my own life.
I know, I can feel it. Can you stop doing that?
This is so huge. I mean, this is life right now. I mean, look at our beautiful kids. Any one of them.
You're going to make me cry. I can't do it.
And say they're worthy of all the love and all of, validation. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to get an A in school. You want them to get an A in school because you want what's best for them, right? You want them to live their best life, but even that's a story.
I don't care if they get A's.
Yeah, because how many people who get A's are happy? You want them to be happy and fulfilled and whatever, all those things, but they don't need to do anything. But yet we turn right around because somebody made us feel along the way, and we accepted as our sticky note, we accepted in our world that we aren't worthy inherently. We need to go and earn it. We need to be prettier. We need to be slimmer. We need to be smarter. We need to be better at X and Y and Z and better producers. And we need to continuously redefine success because we don't feel worthy of the success we get.
Yeah.
So if you start to get money, you go, oh, I'm not worthy of that money. My anxiety is going to be somebody's going to finally figure that shit out. And then I'm going to lose all of this, right? That's the anxiety that comes from it. So the real work is to trade, and it's work. It's not a light switch. At least it hasn't been for me. It's work because it's taken you, however old you are, it's taken you that many years to get to where you are right now. So you can't expect it to just bloop.
No.
It's conditioned. So you have to recondition. And the reconditioning is away from the need for external validation and the stories that we're telling ourselves to what we need to do in order to be worthy, and to flip that script and remind ourselves that there's absolutely nothing. So in the midst of the anxiety attack, what my training is through Mark is to say, I am worthy. There's nothing I need to do to be more of a success, to be worthy of taking the next breath. And I am emotional thinking about it, but because I have spent so many years of my life not feeling worthy. I wish I had those. I wish I had that energy back, that time back where I was my own jailer.
Where do you think that came from? I mean, I assume your childhood. Can you pinpoint it or no?
I can't exactly, and there have been validating points along the way. I think that it's because I think as a general rule, it's because all parents use the carrot and the stick to teach us how to stay alive and be decent human beings, right? So we feel things conditionally. We don't feel things non-conditionally. So I think from the time we're little, we feel like, we're only pretty when daddy says we're pretty. We're only smart because we got a grade that says we're smart and our parents say we're smart. It's all external. We're only as good as our parents, our teachers, our coaches, our nannies make us feel we are. And we try really hard to earn that. So we want to earn it. We want to earn mommy's praise. We want to earn dad's praise. We want to earn the teacher's praise. So we're conditioned from the time we're very little to be earners of worthiness. And nobody comes along at some point and says, hey, look, we did that to teach you how to be a decent human being and to teach you how to stay alive. But here's the truth. The truth is there is nobody who gets to say you're worthy but you. And all the chasing in the world of worthiness from somebody else never fills the you feeling worthy hole that was left. So the only person who can do one day, if you're going to ever feel that, you're the only person who can give that to yourself. And it requires you to challenge these very foundational early things that happen in life. It doesn't mean that your parents were bad parents. I mean, they may have been bad parents. They may have been awesome parents. But every parent, good or bad, uses the carrot and the stick. And even if they didn't and you were an orphan, somebody else was using the carrot and the stick. So we were trained early on to be workers toward worthiness, which inherently means we're not worthy without the work. And the truth is, it's a lie. We were worthy from the beginning. We were worthy because the big guy upstairs put us on this earth and we were birthed into this orb that we live on that has all these challenges, right? But there's nothing, and here's the crazy thing. There's nothing we can do to become more worthy. But we tell ourselves a different story. There's nothing we can do to become less worthy. The person who's on death row is somebody's kid.
I think about that when I see homeless people.
Look, my son for a period of time was he is an addict. He's in recovery. Thankfully, he's about to hit 7 years. Way to go. I'm so proud of you.
That's amazing.
That is, but there was a time he was on the street and he was, actively using. And I can't help but think about it. Every one of those people that you see is somebody's kid, somebody's parent, somebody's brother, somebody's sister. And whatever the hell they got going on and whatever they've even done in the world, they're no less worthy of love. They're no less worthy of life, in my view. Now, that's maybe a different position than other people would have, but the person who's done the worst thing imaginable, you can hate that, but it doesn't make them any less worthy of their mommy probably still loves them and should.
Absolutely. Now, as we were talking, I could start to feel your energy, and then it impacts my energy. So
Yes.
it leads me to my next question. Are you still using that during trial?
I can't help but use that. I mean, and that's, I don't get as much trial time as I wish I would get. I mean, I think you hear that. And then I immediately say, do you really be careful what you ask for, right? I love trial, but I also love that I'm not in trial all the time, because that's a hard way to live. But yeah, I'm still very much working on a daily basis the idea of awareness of what's going on with me emotionally, mental state, emotional states. And even here, sitting here, when I started to get emotional, you notice that I gave words to it. I said, I'm feeling emotional, right? I do that because not to tell you that I'm feeling emotional.
I could feel
I do it to tell me that I'm aware of how I'm feeling right now.
Can you feel other people's energy more since you
Of
started
course.
to do this? Can you feel my energy?
I can feel your energy. And especially when we started talking about kids and we started talking about things that become strong. I mean, what happens is, and we can't help it. This is just the laws of the universe, just like the laws of physics. Is we vibrate at a certain frequency with what things that are going on, and if my emotionality, if my state, if I start sort of vibrating louder and at a higher frequency than you can't help but feel it, and you also, by the way, can't help but react to it.
You took me there.
And you're gonna most of the time unless you're trained on how to deal with this, which is what spies and people in that world of covert living train to do. They train to feel it and then create blocks to it and not react to it, which is a reaction, by the way, but they choose their reaction. Whereas most of us, if we're not trained, you can't help it. You're going to move toward that emotional powerhouse. It's the reason why you go in a room sometimes and suddenly you feel drained or suddenly you feel super energized. You're reacting to somebody else's energy.
I imagine a bubble. When someone's energy impacts me, I try to block it. And imagine I'm in a bubble and I'm like, nope, not I don't know if it works, but I try.
And what I would say is it probably does work, but the reason it works is not the bubble. The reason it works is because you felt it. You had enough awareness to where you felt the awareness before it dramatically impacted you. Because once it fully impacts you, it's like an amygdala hijack, right? Your brain and your chemistry take over. It's not a conscious thing. And most people are not conscious. So they get hijacked, and then
that's what you call it.
Their body chemistry supports the hijacking, right? But when you say, hey, I imagine I put myself in a bubble. So if you can train yourself to be aware and be aware before the hijack gets complete, then you can essentially, and I love the imagery actually of putting myself in building a protective cocoon around myself, a bubble around myself. I'm not going to let that energy change my energy. So where I do that as a lawyer is when I'm walking into what I believe is going to be a hostile situation, like I'm going to be taking a deposition and I've got one of the people who I think are challenging lawyers to work with on the other side, or a judge who historically has been rough on me, or whatever, or a client who's been a particular challenge. I build that cocoon, that bubble, before I ever walk in the room. So I don't have to react to something. I don't have to catch it at the right time before I get hijacked, prevent the hijacking in advance. And it's something we can all train ourselves to do. If you have awareness and you believe what we're talking about energy, then it should be part of your preparatory thing. For you, if you're going into a new client meeting or you're going to sell a client, one of the things that would be great for you to do is take a moment and consciously choose how you want your energy to be when you're in that room before you ever walk in. So for lawyers, it's how do you want your energy to be when the deposition starts? Why let that be up to chance? How do you want to be when you stand in front of the judge or when you're in front of the jury for the very first time? And to know that through intentionality and then some pretty simple exercises, you can put yourself in that spot. And the more you practice doing that, the better you get at it. So that's a lot of my life now, is trying to be aware, which is the hardest part, awareness. And then bring intentionality to where choose. When you walk in, we talked about this, I know one time before, about if you ever walk in even your own home, you've had a great day, you walk in and you can feel shit coming off your spouse before you ever, get all the way in the room, right? And suddenly things don't go great.
Right.
Because, but usually that happens with no intentionality. It's just, you start telling yourself a story, you run off into your own reality, and all the chemicals take over on both sides, and then it's a fight, right? But what if you trained yourself to feel that feeling of, something's awkward and whatever, I'm going to now freeze, create space, I'm going to choose exactly how I want to react. I want to choose my state, I want to choose my energy. And you choose that based on what you want the outcome to be. Do you want to end up in a fight with your spouse? Sometimes we do. Screw it. I'll take a hit, I mean, that's true, right?
I know.
Right. Other times we don't. We really want to feel close. And so if I'm an asshole, if my energy is asshole energy, we're probably not going to get to the conclusion of feeling close.
Right.
Right. I'm going to be all by myself. I'm going to prove my energy right. Right. It's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy in either direction. So bring intentionality to the prophecy. And then,
How much has this changed your life?
I'm living so differently now than I did before. I mean, even just a year ago, very, very different. So much, it's not that I'm perfect at any of this stuff. I don't think that's the goal even, to be perfect. Perfect means for me, working on, I call them the rocks in the stream, right? Like, the river knows how to be calm all on its own. Nothing has to teach the river how to be calm. It's the rocks that are the problem, that create the turbulence in the water, right?
Do you meditate?
I'm just starting to. I've done it at times and I've not been as consistent, but I'm doing it much more consistently now.
What do you do? Just regular meditation?
I'm using a program that's called Waking Up.
Yeah, I've downloaded it before. It's an app, right?
Sam Harris, I think, is who created it.
Have you tried Yoga Nidra?
Am I done?
Have you tried Yoga Nidra, which is a meditation? It's not.
I have not. I mean, I've read about it.
That's what I do. Try it.
I will. Do you have a particular one that you like?
I'll send it to you. I do Ali. She's starts with a B, Bothright or something like that.
If you won't mind, send it to me. I'd love to try it.
I do it all the time. I specifically do it at conferences because I feel very drained after like so many podcast episodes and meetings and
yep.
But one thing that I've noticed is like the more that I do it, A, I actually crave it, and B, it actually feels really good.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh, this is like the state that like feels like very pure.
That's great. It's great. And I would just add to it that you could set your intention in the morning to, I'm going to give everything like I always do to my podcasts, and I'm going to be energized by them and not depleted by them. And just setting that intention may change. I mean, I'm finding that so much of it is in the setup, and like, how do you, we walk into, firestorms all the time, unprepared for them. I mean, we've not done anything to set our intentionality. The more things we can set our intentionality about, the better. So my morning from again, working with Mark is I do gratitude work in the morning, and I make a conscious choice. Every morning I make a conscious choice that I'm going to be happy today. And it doesn't matter what happens. Whatever happens is not attached to my happiness. I can be happy and have the worst imaginable things happen in my life. and I can still be happy. Those are not mutually exclusive, but that had to be something I came to after a lot of time in thought and sort of my own like meditation, but not in the way contemplation, really, I should say, more than meditation.
I need to try this because I feel like specifically at conferences, I feel like I almost like wake up with like a certain level of like anxiety and like I'm rushed. And everything that I do feels rushed. And I'm like, but why do I feel rushed? Like, what is the rush? Why? I don't get it. It's like I'm doing it to myself.
So what's the story you're telling yourself about being rushed at conferences?
There's so much shit I have to do.
Mm-hmm. And first of all, does that make you get more done or not really?
No, and I mean, it doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah. And so do you bring your best self to it?
No, probably not.
Right. So what do you think would happen if you let go of the need to feel rushed?
I think I'd feel better.
So why do you want to hold on to it? How does it serving you?
No fucking idea, Joe. None.
Well, I don't know you. I mean, I know you, but I don't know what's going on with you. But from my own work on me, some of the answers that would come up after contemplating would be, well, I'm away from my family and my spouse and my regular things, so I better not let myself feel too happy about that. I better not, it would be wrong for me I should suffer a little bit.
This is what Jen would tell me. Like Jen tells me the same shit.
Well.
And she knows me really well.
Right. I mean, you guys know each other in that girl way that I can't ever know. But yeah, I'm not sorry.
You're okay with that.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay that I love that exists. But at the end of the day, I think the message for you, but really the message for the people who are listening to this is you get to choose how you feel. As crazy as that sounds, as BS as that sounds. So all you got to do in the morning is take literally 2 minutes to truly feel grateful. Not just say, I'm grateful for blah, 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 but truly feel the gratefulness.
Joe Dispenza. Yeah, that's what he talks about.
Feel it for 2 minutes.
Come in. Hi, Nancy. Look who just walked in. How lucky am I?
Nancy and John Romano. Yeah.
We should. John.
I hope that you are actually doing a podcast with Nancy Romano because no, I am absolutely serious.
Sorry, John. Change of plans.
I don't mean that it shouldn't be John, but I mean a podcast with Nancy. And again, I'm getting emotional saying this about life in the way she has done it, which includes being married to an amazing man and trial lawyer and what that is. It involves being a mom to these amazing people in her life. I mean, these people who are changing the world. And my bet is that she could teach us so much about that role, about how to be there in that role in the right ways at the right times, and how to not be, when to be and when to not be. The things we were talking about earlier before they got here about, parenting, about how do you be when things get tough? Mm-hmm. Because this thing that they've done has not always been easy. It's been a roller coaster. And so my bet is that she's learned lessons that have made it possible for John to be John, for the kids to be the kids in their own ways, and for that to be incredible. And she's been the unsung hero behind a lot of it that doesn't ever seek 1 ounce of credit and yet deserves so very much. And I know John is saying amen and hallelujah to that. I could not be where I am here now if I didn't have a wife who not only supported it and me and made it possible to do, but at some times suffered as the result of it. It was not easy. It's easier now in some ways, but there were times when it was not easy for her. And she probably hasn't even really opened up to tell me about all those times. That's my, and there's a part of me that not sure I want to hear them, but it's the truth. I mean, anyway,
Well,
I'm done.
Thank you so much.
John, I warmed it up for you.
Thank you so much to everything that Joe shared with us today. If you found this story valuable, please share it with someone you want to see succeed. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way to help others discover the show.